Most of my ideas are pretty good. But, I mean, they are. I'm sorry.
In 2004, a young woman from New York City had an idea. The streetwear movement, birthed out of a confluence of skate, surf, and hip-hop fashions, had largely been created by men for men. But Leah McSweeney saw an underrepresented community of young women, herself included, who shared the same influences and aesthetics, but had no brand catering to them. With this inspiration, and a windfall that came courtesy of the NYPD's brutal behavior, she launched Married to the Mob. More than 15 years later, the brand continues to thrive, boasting collabs courtesy of KAWS and Nike, and an infamous lawsuit courtesy of Supreme. And all the while, McSweeney's celebrity has continued to rise as well, from controversial writing and podcasting to her scene-stealing star turn on Bravo's Real Housewives of New York. Now at the zenith of her fame, McSweeney is doubling down on mob, launching a new athleisure line, and herself, with the release of her autobiography, Chaos Theory. And it all started with one idea.
My mother was a social worker that worked on East Broadway at a detox program. My father, his first job that I remember, he was a projectionist at Angelica. And then my dad became a health inspector. I just felt like, God, they're working so hard. And I was like, I don't know if I want to work this hard for this amount of money. I just, and
so you decided to be an entrepreneur.
Yes. I think I kind of was forced into entrepreneurship because I was not exactly employable. Okay, let's just put it that way.
Tell me, what was
the
17-year-old Leah like?
Exactly, 17-year-old Leah, I definitely had some behavioral addiction issues that were a big thing throughout high school, and I was, not allowed to live at home after the age of 17 and lived in a therapeutic community in a halfway house, and I was kind of forced to do things on my own, and I didn't have my parents to fall back on or even their home to move back into. So I actually started working at the Guest store on Broadway in 2001. I was working retail, but I was going out, I was partying nonstop. I met Rob, Kiki's dad, who owned A-Life. Rob changed my life because I was really inspired by him and his creativity and his work ethic and his passion for his brand. But it was this part of New York that was bubbling and being born, and people from all over the world were into these brands and watching what we were doing. And the guys were going on all these free trips because they had brands. And I'm I want to travel. I'll just start a brand because that's how I'm going to get a free trip.
Really?
Yeah.
That simple?
Yeah.
What were the steps to getting started?
I started the brand with a friend of mine named Sharon. A lot of people don't even know that she started the brand with me. But me and her were hanging out on my stoop. We're let's do a brand. We'll call it Married to the Mob. I'm Rob can help us design. He knows how to fucking do graphics. We don't. Me and Rob that night, I was we need to do this. I'm doing this. When I get something in my head, I get obsessive and crazy about it.
Where did the name come from?
So one was the retail mafia. We were the girl counterpart, Married to the Mob. Secondly, MOB stood for Most Official Bitches. That's what I called my friends. 3, I also would joke around and say that I had a mob wife life because I was kind of living off of Rob in a way. And no shame, obviously, and just going to brunch and shopping, and I was this is the life. I'm kind of married to the mob. So that night, after me and Sharon had decided we were gonna start this brand, we designed, I think it was 4 different graphics. First I went to A-Life, and there was a guy named Ricky that worked at A-Life, and he was I have a t-shirt printing machine that I just bought. It's in my apartment. I'm great, you're gonna print my t-shirts. Where do I go to get the t-shirts? He's you go to Friedman's. So I go to Friedman's on Grand Street, which was a wholesale account that sold American Apparel. I bought the 2102, which was more of like a boxy, like boy style girls t-shirt, and took them to his house in black garbage bags and had the t-shirts printed. I mean, probably only, you know, maybe 10 to 20 of each graphic, and brought them to Union and started selling them there.
What were the 4 original designs?
One just said married to the mob. One said fresh out of rehab. One said boys ain't shit but hoes and tricks. And one said supreme bitch.
Are there any media that you think really changed your life or informed your aesthetic?
I have to say just Little Kim was my North Star for everything I did. She helped like shape my style, my views on feminism, on life. Like, I just love her. When I came up with the idea for the brand that very night, me and Rob were designing and I was listening to Little Kim, and she says, queen bitch, supreme bitch. And I'm like, oh my God, supreme bitch. And we'll do it in the Supreme logo. That'll be so cute. And it got approved and it got sold at Union.
You said it got approved. What is it?
It got approved.
Yes,
Yeah.
As the proprietor of the business, what does that mean?
Right, okay. So Marianne, who owned Union.
Yes.
She was like, oh, these are so cute. Let me go bring it to James to see if like it's cool to sell. And like 10 minutes later, she came back down like, yep, I'm gonna, I'll sell them on consignment, of course. Like, but I was like, fine, whatever, I don't care.
What, so James Jebbia himself not only approved of this, but then sold it in his store?
Yeah, he sold it in the store too.
Okay.
Years later, there was a little disagreement about it, but it's all water under the bridge now.
Where did you get the money to invest in those first SKUs?
So Sharon put $4,000 in, and she quickly got paid back.
What about the police?
I had been working at this store, it's called Satellite Records. They gave us tickets to go to some electronic music thing that night at Hammerstein, so I went and I saw like an old fling there, and me and him like left the venue and we're like took a walk. I was kissing him goodbye, and like all of a sudden I just remember like him like being like torn away from me, and I opened my eyes and he was getting the shit beat out of him by 5 cops. So I had a half empty Poland Spring bottle in my hand, and it was just a instinct, gut reaction. I threw it. I didn't even think about it, and it hit a cop in the back. I just see that it hits a cop in the back, and everything like went slow motion. Like the cop just like turned around and looked at me and like knew it was me, and I was like in my head like I'm fucked. And he lunged at me and punched me with a closed fist here, and I kind of spun and like fell and landed half on the sidewalk, and then I just felt all these like fucking knees, and like I felt so much pressure, like there were just like people on me, and I got handcuffed, and while I'm handcuffed on my stomach, the cop took my hair and slammed my face into the subway grates 3 times and was like, do you see what happens when you fuck with me, you little bitch? And I felt my tooth fall out, get knocked out. I saw this female cop and I'm like, look what he did to me. Like, look. And she's like, if that was me, I would have knocked all your fucking teeth out. One of the cops threatened to rip all my clothes off at one point. I was in the cell by myself. Someone was finally like, a friend was like, you should talk to a lawyer or something. I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. This is kind of crazy. I really just didn't want the cop to get away with it, which he did. He got actually promoted to lieutenant while this was going on, which sucked. But, you know, winning the $75,000 was worth it. What that money gave me the freedom to do was to quit the job I had, buy a computer, which I'd never owned a computer before, and of course then have extra money to put into the brand. But it was really going already, and it just gave me the freedom to quit my job and be able to like live and put all my energy into the brand.
With her market identified, money in the bank from her settlement, and the technical help of A-Life's Rob Cristofaro, McSweeney was ready to go all in on Married to the Mob. However, growing the business involved taking on partners and in some instances, giving up control. How did the responsibilities for the brand break down between you and Sharon?
I feel like I was kind of a control freak. She had a great, very high taste level. And, you know, she had a lot of great ideas in terms of like taking inspiration from high fashion and somehow putting it on a t-shirt.
And how are you handling the bookkeeping and the accounting and...
I know. I somehow really did manage to do that in the beginning. I had a notebook. And then obviously I started learning how to use Excel. I hired my first employee, Lourdes. She was my right hand. We did everything together. We kept track of like everything and we shipped everything ourselves. And like anytime like I would ship it or someone would get paid, I'd put it in the paid folder, right? And like I would see who wasn't in the paid folder and then I would contact them and be like, you owe me money, you know? But I was doing all of that myself. I was careful with what I spent the money on. I mean, I just used me, my sister, and my friends as models. I had friends that were photographers. Like, so marketing was not like I spent money on marketing. I used the collaborations as marketing because those giant companies had money. So like for my Kangol collaboration, for instance, I'm like, I want to get a billboard painted, you know, like pay for that, right? I used the collaborations as a way to market everything, and it was free. I mean, I think my favorite collaboration probably was the Cause bikini. It just was such a turning point. People were like, okay, we're taking you seriously.
And was that a good performer for you?
Oh my God. That, I wish I made 1,000 of those bikinis. We only made 100 and they sold out in like under 1 minute. And this was in 2006.
That's crazy.
I'm banging my head against the wall and I didn't get a piece of art from him.
Yes. You had your child at 25. How did that change your attitude towards your work and towards mom?
It changed it completely. Like I was like, this went from like a passion project that, yeah, I was serious about it and like it was my everything, but now like with the baby, I'm like, this is like do or die. This is everything. It became much more serious.
What prompted you to seek out investment?
It just randomly, a friend was like, you know, you should meet these guys that I know who own Kuji and Fubu. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure.
What was the nature of the deal?
It was an equity deal. They owned part of the brand for 3 years. I got it back from them after the 3 years was over, which is unheard of, but they were good guys and they did the right thing.
And were they fronting monies for production and everything? Okay.
Yeah, everything. And I got paid a salary, like a very high salary.
That's nice.
Oh yeah, it was nice. It was really good. The first like year, I don't know, I kind of got complacent.
How
or
so?
like, I don't know, because when you have investors like that, like they're like looking at every single penny and they are looking at, they don't really care too much about the ethos of the brand. Like they want to make money, which was like a good thing and a bad thing. It was like interesting, but also it didn't like fuck me up a little, but like they wanted me to do men's t-shirts. I never wanted to do men's t-shirts, you know, but I did some anyway. Like there were definitely things I did in that 3-year period that like I wouldn't have done maybe if I hadn't felt like I had to.
Was there any input or, you know, help with decisions that you felt like was really additive to the business?
Yes, honestly, listen, I was able to go to trade shows. I was able to go to trade shows, Bread and Butter, and like other trade shows in Europe. We became a lot bigger and had a lot more visibility. Unfortunately, in 2009, we had a recession. And luckily for me, I was locked into a deal and I was getting paychecks, but like the brand suffered because stores closed down and we had less places to sell the goods. So then when the deal was up, it was like, they were not interested in a brand that was not like bringing in FUBU money, you know?
As you sort of embraced more mainstream places like Zumiez, was there blowback on the other side?
Oh yeah, there was. But I also think that like, There was also enough brands at Zumiez that other stores like couldn't really be mad. Plus, like for a while, a lot of stores were just like going out of business and stuff. It's like, thank God that a lot of us had Zumiez.
So you end up leaving the deal with ownership of the brand.
100% ownership.
And what did you feel like were the next steps from there?
Okay, I went from having a corner, like a beautiful giant office on the 66th floor of the Empire State Building that faced south and west, to having a office that was 100 square feet, and I like sat on the floor to do things because there wasn't enough space to even really have a desk. I mean, it was humbling, but I was still happy. I was happy. I'm like, you know what? I'm happy to go into my little office because it's mine. And I own this brand again. It's just me. I can do whatever I want with it, you know? But it took a while. I never really like talked about this. A friend gave me $100,000 and was like, do your thing, you know? And with that money, I hired a staff. I designed a line, and I went to the trade shows and I built the brand back up again. And within a year or two, I was doing a higher volume than I was ever with my old partners.
From really launching the brand in 2004, there were several waves of sort of culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did you think about riding those sort of waves of culture?
Oh my God. I think it was just about holding on for dear life and being malleable and like being able to like change and go wherever the tide was going and not try to like go against the current, you know, but like go with the current was like really important. This was a game changer for me. Okay?
I can imagine.
This was the game
That's
changer.
a dunk.
This was
from
a dunk.
When dunks were
Exactly. Nike, SB.
How did having a dunk impact the business?
Everybody wanted to fuck with me.
What was the rollout for a Nike collab like in 2007?
We had a party at the Mercer Street store at Webster Hall. Khalees was supposed to perform, and then supposedly, this is what they told me, so please don't come for me, that she wanted like 5 extra like first class tickets to New York to perform. So she ended up not performing, which was such a bummer, but Spank Rock performed, and it was a lot of fun. It was great.
How did you learn just sort of the nuts and bolts of running an apparel business?
Just by doing it and making mistakes and like learning and figuring it out.
You're going in and negotiating deals with
that's true.
suppliers, and how are you figuring out how to, source the t-shirts or sweatpants and deal with the factories in China?
Asking Keith Huffnagel, asking Mark Echo, asking Rob.
How many employees did you have at the peak of the model?
Probably like 12. Nothing crazy, but that was too many people already for me to manage. I'm not a great manager.
What is the key to being a good manager?
I'm not a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, I play favorites. I'm inappropriate, like in the workplace. Like, I shouldn't be the CEO. I already know that. I learned that, I learned that by doing it. My process is kind of chaotic. It's a little impulsive, and it involves sometimes making things harder than they have to be. Okay, these are boobs. I'm not sure if you can tell. They're not symmetrical because boobs aren't symmetrical. Is that how they look? Oh my God, I look like a pervert! Ideas come from my perverted head. Someone likes a small dick.
What was it like emotionally, sort of dealing with the ups and downs of the business? When those things happen, do you feel like it's a reflection on you personally, your aesthetic, your design, or?
Sometimes it was a reflection of me not making the right decision or making the right designs or doing the right marketing, or even me not maybe putting my all into the brand. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just the market. Sometimes it is the economy.
You sort of took me through the brand to 2014, to this 2013, 2014 peak. How did things start to unwind, and then where did you find new inspiration from?
It was interesting because I was really ready to shut the company down. I had like just made some bad decisions, and my accountant was like, Leah, like you don't have any sales coming in like after next month. I had to let go of my whole staff before Christmas. It was the most depressing, worst time of my life. I became best friends with some of my employees. Like they're still my best friends to this day. Having to let go of your best friends right before Christmas, like I felt like a piece of shit. I felt like the worst person in the world. And I was like, you know what? Mob's over. Like it's done.
As management of Mob became increasingly taxing, McSweeney's interests began to fluctuate, and she would seek to diversify her revenue streams and her ambition. A successful, albeit random, turn on Millionaire Matchmaker would create a flood of new opportunities that centered around her personality. This unlikely plot twist for the veteran Garmento would come to a head when she was cast as one of Bravo's Real Housewives of New York.
I'm just going to put it on autopilot and just streamline everything, get rid of my office, drop ship from my printer to Zoomies, and take a step back. And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna let go of that girl boss shit and just fucking pick my kid up from school, make dinner for her, just chill, get off this anti-anxiety medication that I'm on because I'm so stressed out from the business. And things slowly became better. And like things started picking up a little more a year later. And then boom, I got asked to be on Bravo, which then obviously is a new trajectory for Mob that I'm still kind of figuring out.
The Real Housewives opportunity kind of fell into your lap. How did that happen, and how did you think about that fitting into this sort of larger picture of your career?
Obviously, I was like, oh great, this is gonna be an amazing way to promote the brand. But I was also just like excited at a new experience.
Has it translated into a sort of new wave of interest in the brand?
Oh my God, the online sales, like within like a year, it was like 500% more than the year before or whatever. It was crazy.
As you have sort of pivoted your brand, getting involved with the Real Housewives and whatnot, does that change how you think about the types of brands that you would want to collaborate with?
I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I'm still figuring out what being on the show or like also like having a whole new audience like means for the brand. Like how do I reinvent or like grow it in a way that's also interesting to people who like aren't into streetwear?
Do you feel like you've made some moves in that direction? Or?
I think so, yeah. Okay. Like I've been careful. I put "Bitch, I elevate this shit" on a sweatshirt, and like that's been like my highest selling item because it's something I said on the show. I don't want it to be just like a Leah Roni merch brand, you know, which it's fun to have some of that stuff and it's like really lucrative to do that, but it can't only be that.
Mob has now been around for 18 years. How do you keep yourself engaged and excited to keep pushing it forward?
I'm not always. That's just reality. Sometimes I'm just not like inspired. And I just don't take it that, like, I don't trip over it. I'm like, whatever, tomorrow I'll be interested again. You know, next week I'll be interested again. If I was only doing Mob right now, I'd probably be like, oh my God, I am over this, you know, but because I'm writing my book, I'm on the show, I have a new brand, you know, I'm doing a bunch of other projects, it helps me stay engaged.
What part of it is still satisfying to you?
Having my worlds collide, like on Real Housewives this season, you know, Ramona being like, I'll wear your brand. What is it, Leah Mob? Married to the Mob? And I'm like, oh, I don't need you to wear my brand. I already have Rihanna rocking it. And then having Rihanna, who loves Roni and who's worn Mob in the past, put it on her Instagram. And I'm like, this is an insane full circle moment and like this weird time where my both worlds are colliding. And like, that is exciting for me and satisfying, very satisfying.
How has your relationship with the brand evolved over the 18 years?
I went through a phase where I was in love. Then I went through a phase where I fucking resented it. Like literally would like be cursing like on the phone. I'm like, I fucking hate this shit. And now I'm at a point where I'm so grateful.
To run a female streetwear brand you sort of have to thread this needle where part of your audience tends to gravitate towards the male brands in the space.
Yep.
The other part of the audience gravitates towards the luxury, high-end brands.
Totally.
What is the key to being able to carve off like a meaningful amount of audience from those two sides?
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I'm still figuring everything out with the brand, to be honest. That is a challenge, though, figuring out what that looks like and who that girl is and who I am sometimes. Because, but look, things that I've designed and that I've made over the last, 18 years, some of it was so fucking dope and wouldn't sell. So what do I know? Like, I loved it, but like sometimes the ugly thing that I was like, this shit is ugly, why are we making this? That's the one that sold. Can't believe I'm admitting this, but I did. I understood my customer better in the early days than I do now, especially right now, because I have so many more new customers because of the show and because of Bravo. I doubt myself all the time, and then I have like 5 people I call to like tell me to shut up. That's healthy, because there's some people who don't doubt themselves. I don't know. Those people are like sociopaths.
Have you ever at any point thought about selling the brand?
Yeah, of course. Is anybody interested?
How do you balance being a celebrity and star in your own right with being a creative and being an entrepreneur?
I just have to turn off what the outside is, because a lot of people that I think watch the show kind of like objectify all of us and like don't see us. Not everybody does that, but a lot of people don't really see me or any of the other women like with any depth. We're just like characters, like for their entertainment. And I don't think that you get to see a lot of my creativity or my entrepreneurship on the show, really. And, but then there's people that know about Mob. There's people that know my history and things like that. And I just try to focus on not caring what other people think. Yeah, I'm not that good at processing criticism because I just feel like it's nobody's business to criticize me. I'm pretty hard on myself, and I get criticized by strangers all day long on Instagram. That criticism, fuck off.
Was there ever a moment with Mob that you felt like you had to sacrifice integrity in the name of the growth of the business?
Yeah, of course. Doing the men's t-shirts, I really didn't want to do that. But also, it's not really sacrificing the integrity. It's like, you got to keep the lights on sometimes. Yeah, it was like fun having the cool girl moment and all that, but I wanted to make money. I wanted my brand to be available to the masses. So my ego isn't tied into Mob. And it hasn't been for a long time. It's my business, it's a job. Yes, it's a very important part of who I am, but I'm not against selling it like at Target or whatever. Like if it came to be, geez, hell no.
Was there ever any point where you felt like you reached some equilibrium where you could relax and not have the constant roller coaster and freak out?
Yes.
Okay.
This year.
This year? Mm-hmm. And what changed that allowed you to have that?
Because I have other revenue streams and I don't have an office and I don't have employees. So it's amazing.
You're just less stressed out.
I love it. Yes.
Do you have any professional regrets?
This is what my book is about, which is called Chaos Theory: Finding Meaning in the Madness, One Bad Decision at a Time. There are no mistakes. That's obviously not a new concept, but like every time I thought I fucked up with the brand, and in other ways too, it somehow worked out. I think that I did the best I could. I'm also someone who has my own like mental health issues, and like, sometimes I think, well, maybe if I didn't have some of those issues, I would have been more successful. But then I'm like, well, maybe if I didn't have those issues, I wouldn't have been able to be so successful. I don't know. Every day it's like something great happens and something terrible happens. It's like, hey, this new account wants you, but guess what? Like all your fucking stuff is like stuck in China and it's not gonna make it in time, or whatever. So I did have to learn, even though I'm not sure I really learned, but I tried my best to not get too excited or too down on things because I would literally lose my mind.
What gave you the confidence to be an entrepreneur?
I don't think it's confidence. I think it's insanity. I don't even really, it's hard for me to call myself an entrepreneur. I mean, I am, but like, if you're really scared to fail, you won't take a risk. No, I don't want to fail, but I'm not so scared to fail that I'm not going to take a risk. And that's kind of what entrepreneurship is.